Hello, I'm Ellen Sentier, and this is Celtic Noir. And this week, I'm going to tell you another story. This one is called the Giant's. Let me get that right. This one is called The Pig-Sty Prince and the Giant's Daughter. It's one of our old ones, as usual. And here we go. I tell you, it ain't nothing to do with it. Culloch could hear the voice still echoing down through the long tree-bound ride, but he would not listen to it. The old one stood in the doorway, shaking his staff, willing his young charge to stop, but knowing all the while it was to no avail. Culloch ducked the low branches which threatened to sweep him off the horse as the beast's hooves thudded into the green turf, his mind still on the dream. Every night now, since the feast of his return, the same dream. The same gold-bronze hair tied back with a velvet band which matched the blue of her eyes. Now everywhere he looked, he saw her. His mind went back to the night of the feast. His father's wife had leaned towards him so that the dark crystal that swung loose between her white mounds of her breasts, it swung to and fro, mesmerizing. "Will you not marry my daughter, Culloch?" she said. "No." His voice was thick as he answered her, "No, no, I will not." After the third asking, she had sat back in the high chair, her fingers dancing softly over the mellow wood and along the edge of the pewter plate. His eyes followed. She sang softly in her throat, but the words made no sense to him. He felt lost there in the wide hall. The soft light shone through the windows, the smell of the food was sweetly overpowering, and the people, he had never been amongst so many people in his life. His heart turned longingly back to the old white sow with her brood of piglings snuffling amongst the beech mast in the clearing. Sometimes she would turn up truffles for him. At others, she'd lead him into a hazel grove where the forest floor was carpeted with nuts. He would collect them and bring them home to the old one of an evening, and they would sit together beside the fire while the great pig suckled her little ones in the sty next door. Quiet it had been, not like this great hall. The man he now called father he could hardly remember. There was an image there, a sense of movement, a horse beneath him, a strong brown arm about him, and then, "Take care of him," the voice had said. And he was alone with the bent old man and his pig, the sound of thudding hooves receding into the distance. "Your mother ran mad, boy. Had you not heard tell?" The voice called him back into the great hall. His father's wife leaned towards him again. The heavy scent of apricots cloyed his mind. Her teeth were very white. "She ran mad, boy, just as her time came on her. Ran into a pigsty and birthed you there, all in the mire. Did you know that, boy?" "Culloch, the pigsty prince!" The tinkling sound of his father's wife's daughter's laughter clanged like icicles cracking in the morning sun. Her cold white hand touched him. "Never worry it, mother dear. I find I do not like the smell of pigs in my bed." That night, the dream had come, the first time. A slender woman, red gold hair falling like a sheet of firewater down her back, tied back from her brow with a sapphire-coloured band, her coral lips smiling to him as she held out her hand. Then something caught her eye, and she looked back over her shoulder in fear. Something huge and dark approached them out of the cold night, and he awoke. On the third night, he heard her name called on the wind. "Olwen, Olwen." And he woke with the word on his own lips. There's none hereabouts knows aught of her, his father had told him as they walked together through the dim mews. Go to the great court, my son. Arthur and his men will know if any do, and they will help you. It wasn't really on his way, but he had gone back again to his foster home, the Pig-Sty, and to his foster father, the old one, to tell his tale again. Don't you go now. Ain't nought to do with that, the old one had hissed, but Culloch would not listen. The trees thinned now. The country all about became more open, and gradually, like a cloud resting upon the hilltop, he began to make it out. Towers and spires grew out of the very rock, like ridges on a dragon's back, seeming to float and change their shape like clouds in a gentle wind. He watched the light move round and down until it shone and lit the towers, and lit them from below, so they loomed up blue-black against the rose-coloured sky. The last red flash of sun lit his horse's silver coat as he walked wearily up to the gate. What want ye here? He hadn't seen the gnarled shape of the doorkeeper, not at first. A twisted hand took the bridle rein and stopped his horse in its tracks. What want ye here? Came the challenge again. Say your business, for I like not the look of ye. What want ye here? I seek the maiden Olwen, Culloch managed at last, squinting down through the last rays of the sun into the dark face. Faugh! Get ye gone, stupid boy, we want none of ye here. Culloch took a grip on himself at last. Gentling back the reins, he made the horse stand up and paw the air with sharp hoofs. The doorkeeper dropped back a pace. I have the silver tongue, Culloch sang out. I will cry satire on the king, else you stand back and let me in. The doorkeeper stood aside. As he passed, Culloch thought he saw a smile creasing the leathery skin, but it might just have been a trick of the light. In the hall, the great king, and Culloch went straight to his feet, straight to Arthur's feet. Sire, trim my hair for me, for I am of thy kin. Arthur looked and saw that Culloch was indeed of the kindred, and he said to him, Anything canst thou have, save only my horse, my hound, my fighting gear, and my wife. What willst thou of me, kindred son? Grant me the boon to find the Lady Olwen for my bride. I ask it in the names of all the knights and all the ladies at this court. And Arthur granted it. He sent out all the knights to search valiantly for a year and a day, but nothing could they find, and Culloch was angry. He came to Arthur, saying, Thou'rt a promise-breaker, king of kings. I am a bard, and I will rhyme thee, and cry satire on thy house and all within it. Nay, lad, go out now with my men. I give thee Cuthulid for thy guide, to whom all lands are known, and Gusre for interpreter, to whom all tongues are his own. And Gwalchmai, who accomplishes every quest he ever undertakes, and Menw, who is master of every kind of magic, and Bedwyr, who never shies from any exploit. And I give you Kai, for the powers of Kai are such that he can hold one breath within his lungs for 9 days and nights, and any wound he gives is beyond all healers' arts and herbs. And he can be shadow or light, or seem as tall as a tree, and he so wills. So Culloch travelled with his company until one day they came upon a great mound, where sat a giant herdsman. He was taller than the hills and broader than the rivers and deeper than the crystal caves, and beside him sat his dog, who was himself greater than an elephant. While down below there were a herd of great sheep, more numerous than the white hawthorn blossoms in May. Go speak to him, said Culloch to Guthrie. Nay, he is too large for me. And what about the dog? I've a mighty magic greater than a leash for Aaron's hounds. I'll spell him wit, said Manu. And I stand in the shadow behind thee, said Kai. So cautiously Guzria approached the hill. Greetings, herdsman. Who art thou? And whose sheep are these that you guard so vigilantly? Cried Guzria of the many tongues. And the giant herdsman leaned down, way down from the top of his hill, and he sent forth a breath of flame, which singed Guzria's beard and set his horse to running. The others all backed off a bit, but they didn't leave the field. Why, these, cried the herdsman, are the sheep of my brother Espathaden, and I am Custennin, who guards these sheep and these lands from all comers. And whose sheep are ye? The herdsman laughed down from the top of this hill, eyeing them closely, for he was used to people leaving him alone once he had breathed fire upon them. We come from Arthur's court, upon a great quest, said Guzria. Knowst aught of the maiden Olwen? Aye, the giant herdsman leaned down again towards them. All 7 knights backed hurriedly on their horses. Aye, I knows Olwen, and where she steps. The 4 white clovers spring up in her path, for she is so called, the maiden of the white track. What want'st thou with her? She is my promised bride, Kulloch shouted back, pushing his way through the others to the front. And the giant laughed and laughed and laughed. Aye, happens so. Then 'tis Espathaden will be dealing with thee, said the herdsman when he could catch his breath. Espathaden? Aye, I know him all too well. He is my brother, and it is because of my wife that he has taken my lands and eaten all my children save a Guru, who we hide in a chest. It is because of my lovely wife he forces me to serve him in this place. And the herdsman's brow beetled. Why, how is this? Guzria asked. A long story, replied the herdsman. Enough that he has taken my place and my lands and my children. And what pledge have ye to give me that I may know thee? And Kulloch handed him an arm ring. And straightway the herdsman came down from his mound and scooped Kulloch off his horse and into his beard, saying, Thou, my nephew boy, my sister's son, come, I will help thee. They went back with him to his house and were feasted there. Tomorrow night, said the herdsman's wife, for tomorrow is Saturday, and every Saturday Olwen comes to me to wash her hair. Tomorrow night, so you shall see her. And so it came about that he stood at last before the golden bronze-haired maiden, looking deep into her deep blue eyes. I cannot marry you, she said, for I have promised my father, and if I marry, then he will die. But what am I to do? Cried Kulloch. For now that I have found you, I will never part from you again. Olwen thought. You must come with me and ask him for my hand, she told him. He cannot refuse you, but he will set you tasks, and whatever tasks he sets you, you must agree to accomplish, no matter how impossible they seem. So they came with Olwen into her father's hall, and there they found the 9 gates guarded by the 9 porters and the 9 great hounds. And Kulloch and his friends called the porters, and then they killed them as they stood at their gates, and the hounds along with them. And so they entered into the giant's castle. Espathaden was a giant even larger than his brother Custennin the herdsman, and he sat at his table, half asleep. I come to ask for the hand of Olwen, your daughter, in marriage, cried Kulloch, as bravely as he could manage. Lifting himself from the board, Espathaden called his servant. Ho there, come to me, you whining, snivelling wretch. Bring a pitchfork. and lift my eyelids so that I may see these invaders of my hall. And so it was done. And when he saw Kuluk, he thought to himself, what a pesky little man he was. So reaching out one hand, he took a poisoned spear and flung it at the guests. But Bedwyr caught it and flung it back at the giant, wounding him in the knee. I will have your daughter's hand, cried Kuluk again, getting angry now. By damn, said Ysbyddaden, that smarts. I will not walk easy now for the rest of my life. I'll teach the silly boy a lesson. And he cast a second poisoned spear, but this time Menw caught it and cast it back again, catching the giant in the hollow under his ribs. Give me Olwen for my bride, shouted Kuluk. Ouch, cried Ysbyddaden. The wretched man has knocked me sideways. Now I'll be short of breath every day for the rest of my life. And he caught up a third poisoned spear and cast it straight at Kuluk. And this time Kuluk caught the spear and threw it back, piercing the giant right through his eyeball. Ysbyddaden blinked and blinked and blinked, and then the spear fell out of his eye, and the giant wiped his eye again and again with a rag the size of one of the Prydwen's sails, but he could not stop it watering. Ah! A cur to have as a son-in-law, he spluttered. I'll not see the sunrise easy of a morn again for the rest of my life, and the wind will always be having my eye to watering. What a curse to live with for the end of my days. But then he turned to Kuluk and said, Aye, Olwen shall indeed be thy bride, but first thou must perform the Anothu, the impossible tasks. And his yellow teeth peered out through his gangly beard from around his blackened gums as he smiled to himself. For he knew no man could do the things that he would ask, and so he would have Kuluk for his breakfast. The stake of my play is this, the giant cried, and I lay it as crosses and spells that thy head and thy neck are forfeit and thou dost not fulfil these tasks. And only when you have accomplished them all will you marry my daughter. And I tell you now that you will not accomplish them, for they are tasks that no man may accomplish. And Ysbyddaden chuckled long and hard, for he knew there was no way Kuluk would ever be able to do these things. Tell on then, father-in-law, cried Kuluk, loud and brave. Tell me the tale of these Anothu. And so Ysbyddaden began to sing. Thou must root up all the hill yonder and plough it, and sow it all in one day. And in one day the wheat must ripen, not only from that wheat, for only from that wheat will the bread for my daughter's wedding be baked. Not hard at all to do, cried Kuluk, remembering what Olwen had told him. So it may be, sang Ysbyddaden, but there are only 2 men in the whole world who can till the land and rid it of its stones, and they will not work for you. And the man who has the only oxen who can draw the plough to the end till the land will not give these oxen to you, and you will not be able to get them. And when I did marry Olwen's mother, 9 bushels of flax were sown, and yet not a blade came up. You must recover that flax, and sow it again in the wild land, tilled by the men who will not work for you, ploughed by the oxen you cannot get. For it is only from this flax that the linen for my daughter's headdress can be made. Ha! Not hard, cried Kuluk, far more bravely than he felt. Not hard to do at all. So you may say, sang Ysbyddaden, but there are other things that must be done as part of the Anothu, and you cannot do them. For I must have the Grail cup, of which all the stories are told, to hold this sweet wedding draught. And I must have honey that is 9 times sweeter than ordinary bees' honey to make the marriage drink. And I must have the cauldron of plenty into which any man may dip his hand and draw out whatever he loves best of all. and you must bring me the fairy horn, and pour the wine for the guests, and the fairy harp which plays without a bard to strum it, just to make music for the feast, and the fairy pot which boils meat without a fire to make food for the guests. All these things are not hard for me to do at all, cried Cullen in a strong voice, but his heart was down in his boots. I have heard you say that before. The giant almost spat at Culloch in his rage. But I must wash my head and shave my beard, and these things I cannot do without I have the blood of the jet-black witch, and the razor which hangs between the tusks of the great boar, Turth, and him you will never capture. Not hard at all, shouted Culloch, angry at last with the rigmarole the giant was giving him. And then, the giant shouted back at him, and then I will need the fairy comb and the fairy scissors which hang between the ears of Truth, to trim and comb my hair and my beard, and these you will never ever get. But I will. It will be perfectly easy for me to do all of these things, cried Culloch, now in a towering rage. To do them, you will need the fairy hounds and the fairy leash, and the greatest huntsman in the world, and that is Mabon, son of Modron, who was stolen from his mother when he was but 3 days old, and has never been seen since. And you cannot find him. Ysbyddaden sat back in his chair and waited, having come to the end of the Anothu. Not hard at all. Not hard at all. It will be very easy for me to find Mabon and do all of these other things that you require, Culloch said, his voice getting cold now with rage. And then, the giant leaned now across the table, and then you must get me the glaive of light, the sword which belongs to the king of the oak windows. And this can only be done by killing the king with the glaive. No other way will get the sword from him. And this, I know, you cannot do. I will get the glaive of light, and I will kill the king of the oak windows, and when I have done that thing, then I will take your life with the glaive itself. Now Culloch's eyes burned like blue ice fire under his dark brow. That evening, Culloch came to Olwen with his head and his heart hanging low, but he knew not how to get the glaive of light away from the king of the oak windows, let alone do all of the other deeds he had promised himself to do. You have no cause to mind that, she told him. You will have the best wife, who has the best horse in the whole wide world, and if you will heed me, you will come well out of this. And next morning she saddled up her own dun filly for him and kissed him, saying, I need tell thee nothing, for the horse knows all, and she will help thee. So Culloch rode away, leaving Olwen and his companions behind to complete the rest of the tasks. And the dun filly ran as fast, so she did leave the March wind far behind her, and outstripped all the winds in front of her. It seemed no time at all before they came to the castle of the king of the oak windows. And the dun filly slid to a halt and said, Now then, we are here, and if you listen to my words, you will carry away the sword of light. Come now to yon window, and there you will see the sword with a knob at its end. Lean in now and draw it gently through the window. And Culloch did as he was bid, and as the sword came to him in his hand, then its point passed through the window frame, so it cried out aloud, I'm took! 'Tis no stopping us here for now, said the dun filly, for I know the king of the oak windows has heard the sword is a-leaving him. And Culloch leapt to her back, and she turned about as fast and sped off for home. After a while, the filly paused and said to Culloch, Look back behind us and tell me what you do see. I see a host of brown horses coming on madly, he answered. No worry then, we are faster than they, and she sped on for home. After a little while more, the filly paused again. "What see ye now?" she asked. And Culloch turned and looked again. "'Tis a crowd of black horses now I see, and they are becoming on madly and madly too," he told her. And the filly turned about, saying, "Not time to worry yet, for we are faster than they." And she flew on for home. And in another little while again the filly paused. "Look again, Culloch. What do you see?" Culloch screwed up his eyes. "I see a single black horse with a white face," he said, "and he comes on madly and madly." "'Tis my brother," said the dun filly, "and he is the fastest horse in all the land. He will come past us like a flash of light. As they pass, try if you can cut off the head of the rider, for it is the king of the oak windows, and only the sword in your hand can cut off his head." And Culloch did as the filly told him, leaning out to full stretch, so he sliced off the head of the king of the oak windows. And at last they came again to the giant herdsman's home, and set aside carefully the glaive of light where none could reach it. And Culloch found that the men had come, and the oxen been loaned, and the fields been tilled, and the wheat and the flax grown, the bread baked, and the headdress woven, all with the aid of his friends. Next morning early, the band of 7 set out to find Mabon. They went first to the Blackbird of Kilgurry, that's Gurry's retreat, and the bird told them that he knew nothing of their quest, but he directed them to the stag, who was far older than he. The stag of Reddenfir, the Fernbrake Hill, said he too knew nothing of Mabon, but that they should go and visit the owl of Kelguith, the wood of the Caw Grey, who was older still and might be able to help them. But the owl again knew not of their quest, and he directed them to the eagle of Gwen Avwy, the alder swamp, who was far older than he. The eagle had heard of Mabon indeed, and he at last directed them on to find the salmon of Llynllow, the lake of the leader, where they would find good help. They found the salmon deep in the lake and called to him, and the salmon knew Mabon, knew where he was. "Climb onto my back," the fish told Kai and Gwir, "up onto my shoulders, and I will carry you to the castle where Mabon lies lamenting in his prison." And this was done. It was Kai who fought the guards, while Gwir freed Mabon from his bonds, and together they brought him back with them to Culloch. And now Mabon led them on the fairy hunt with the fairy hound after the great boar, and Tuath Truith led them a merry long chase all across Ireland and across Cornwall, until eventually they overcame him. And then they took the razor and the comb and the scissors from Tuath Truith and drove him into the sea, since when none has heard of him again, or any road, not for certain. The band of friends returned at last to Ispathaden's castle, bearing the hallows they had won with them. And the giant watched, nodding and smiling faintly, just letting his mouth crease as they brought each one up to show him. Finally, the smile of satisfaction spread across his face, and he said, "Now then, my heroes bold, bring forth the blood of the jet-black wish and wash my hair. Comb me with the fairy comb, and trim my hair for me, son-in-law. Then I will be shaved as I commanded with the razor from between the tusks of Tuath Truith." And so it was done. Ispathaden was bathed and combed, trimmed and shaved, according to his wishes, ready for the wedding. And then, out from the chest where he had been hid away, came Goru, Ispasadden's nephew and the son of the giant herdsman Custennin. And Kuluk gave into Guru's hand the glaive of light, whereupon Ispasadden bowed down his head, and Guru cut it off. And the friends feasted then, long into the night, and long after Kuluk had bedded Olwen. And summer followed spring, as it has done since the sun first rose into the sky. And that was the tale of the Pig-Sty Prince, and I hope you enjoyed it. That's it for this week. Next week I shall be back with another story for you. So until then, farewell, and see you on the other side.